The movie starts at BlackRock Labs, where they're presenting a secret project to a big client. The project is about the security of a global science and technology conference, and they've made a robotic suit called Power, which is controlled by a trained operator. After the presentation, the inventor, Dr. Cohn, says Power is ready and has passed all the tests. A man questions the operator's reliability, but Amy, Dr. Cohn's assistant, reassures him that their advanced VR system can help find the best operators. The man is then convinced, then they strike a deal, and later Dr. Cohn and Amy talk about the immense power stored in a small device, referring to Power's data storage. Cohn thinks Power is like a double-edged sword and must not fall into the wrong hands. The scene changes and we see armed men led by Captain Long Wei escorting a VIP from a hotel. They stop at an elevator, and a man who looks like a waiter walks by, and Long Wei doesn't pay him much attention, but suddenly the waiter shoots one of his men and throws bombs at the rest, causing a massive explosion. Long Wei and the remaining men regroup, but masked enemies start shooting at them. Long Wei and some of his men manage to escape through the stairs, but the masked enemies follow. Long Wei fights back and kills some of them, but when they reach the floor, Long Wei tries to lead the people into the building away from the shootout, but he was confronted by a tattooed assassin, and others wait to kill him and the VIP. Long Wei fights them off and reaches the exit, but their only escape was to jump out of a nearby roof. The VIP hesitates, but Long Wei insists that they must hurry. He pushes the VIP onto the other roof and jumps after him, and the enemies arrive and start shooting, hitting both of them. The VIP almost falls off the roof, but Long Wei saves him, and a helicopter arrives and shoots at the enemies, killing them, and Long Wei and the VIP are then safely escorted to the ground. Few days later, Long Wei is seen playing with his daughter, and he's bandaged up from his injuries and has broken his arm. His wife joins them and tells them that she's ordered a cake, then a doorbell rings, and when the wife opens the door, she's surprised to see one of the tattooed assassins. Back at home, Long Wei notices an eerie silence and turns toward the door, and his wife appears scared, holding a bomb instead of a cake, and seeing the timer on it, she locks herself inside the bathroom. Their daughter rushes to the door, pleading for her mom to come out, and Long Wei watches helplessly, and suddenly the bomb explodes, killing his wife and setting the room ablaze. The scene then moves forward, showing Long Wei driving in a rundown neighborhood, and his hair has grown and he seems downcast compared to before. He lives in a shabby place and runs a repair shop, and he brings home canned food, but his daughter, now disabled and suffering health complications from the fire, dislikes their lives. One night, the doctor informs Long Wei that his daughter Fang Fang's latest test results are worrying, and her brain still shows a blood clot. The doctor suggests surgery, and Long Wei promises to arrange the money as soon as possible, and one day, Long Wei is called to a club for work. At the same place, Amy, the doctor's assistant, is partying with her colleagues. She goes to the bathroom, but a creepy guy follows her, and she tries to fight him off, but he assaults her, and Long Wei, washing his hands on the other side of the bathroom, hears Amy's screams and rushes in. He grabs the man, who pulls out a knife, but Long Wei fights him off and saves Amy. The fight spills into the bar, where the man's friends join in, and Long Wei fights all of them, leaving them injured. Amy watches silently, and after the fight, Long Wei breaks down due to his PTSD and vomits at the back of the bar. He takes some medication and tries to calm himself down, and the next day he comes home from work to find his door broken. He rushes in to check on Fang Fang, but finds her playing with Amy. He felt ashamed for his appearance, and before leaving, Amy offers him a job at BlackRock and gives him her business card. Long Wei politely declines due to his traumatic past, but Amy leaves her card anyways. As she was about to leave, they hear Fang Fang fall in her room, and then they rush in to find her unconscious. Amy performs CPR while Long Wei looks for an adrenaline shot, and Amy injects the shot and Fang Fang wakes up, much to their relief. Long Wei thanks Amy for her help, and the next day at work, Long Wei gets a call from the hospital informing him that Fang Fang's surgery bills have been paid. He realizes that BlackRock has paid the bills, and that night he has a flashback of his late wife giving him a bracelet symbolizing their family. In the present, Long Wei takes out the bracelet and gains courage, and he decides to take the job at BlackRock, and he shaves his long head and beard that night, and he sees his old self in the mirror, and kisses Fang Fang goodnight and drives toward the company. In the next scene, Amy was at the company discussing technical matters when she spots Long Wei in the hallway. She was pleasantly surprised that he accepted the job, and he thanks her for paying the hospital bills. Later, we see Long Wei with other candidates in a room while they were taking a VR test before being hired. Amy explains that the tests are randomly assigned and that the VR system is very realistic. The candidates put on the necessary gear and goggles, and the test starts and Long Wei is immersed in a bright light, screaming due to the stress on his brain from the VR. He quickly is transported into a game world, appearing in the sky. He sees several containers and it just feels like a game, and enemies appear out of nowhere and Long Wei begins to defend himself, moving as he pleases. He's a skilled fighter, and the advanced technology enhances his fighting abilities, and he fights off numerous threats by shooting and bombing them. When he completes his mission, he finds a woman covered in black sheets and tied to a chair as a hostage, and he then removes the cover and finds his wife begging for help. Long Wei screams as his PTSD is triggered, and at the same time the system glitches and Long Wei removes all the wires attached to him. He crawls and takes his medicine and tries to calm down. He screams and he wanted to leave the facility and quit the test, but suddenly the place is raided by armed men and the room they're in explodes due to a bomb. Chaos breaks out as the terrorist group starts shooting at everyone who survived, and meanwhile Long Wei manages to hide and goes unnoticed by the raiders. However, he is hit by a stray bullet and he tries to stop the bleeding. He applies alcohol and cotton to the wound and ties it with a towel, and he then rushes to see what's happened to the others. And meanwhile, the terrorist group has killed every doctor in the hallway, and Long Wei is traumatized to see dozens of dead bodies in his wake. It reminds him of his past encounter in the hotel room at the beginning of the movie, and he grabs a gun from one of them and heads to the security room that he just found. On the screen, he sees the group holding a bunch of doctors, including Amy, hostage, and it turns out that it's a terrorist group and that they're here to take a source code of the weapon power. Meanwhile, in the control room, the leader and his accomplice Steven were keeping the people hostage. He then asks Dr. Cohn for the core data on power, but the doctor refuses to give it to him. He threatens to kill the hostages and even shoots some of them, and when he threatens to kill anyone, the doctor accepts sadly and gives the man the code. Meanwhile, Long Wei is noticed by one of the men, and he successfully distracts and takes the weapon out of the box. However, their captain heard some shooting and asks for a response from his men, and his men are now under control of Long Wei, and everything was okay. Meanwhile, Dr. Cohn uses the captain's distraction as a means to initiate the power data source code distraction. He thought this would be better than putting the weapon in the hands of a terrorist group, and the captain realizes this and brutally kills the doctor. Amy is terrified of what she saw, but things get worse as the captain starts to abuse the hostages to fix the problem. Having no choice, she volunteers to revert the destruction process in exchange for the hostages' freedom, and the man accepts the deal and gives her the stage. At the same time, Long Wei has triggered the alarm next to him, and this causes the siren to go off. The captain orders Steven to go and check it out and find out if anybody's alive, and meanwhile Long Wei has changed his suit for the man he just killed. He now looks identical to the terrorists, and they don't even notice him as he finds and kills a bunch of them. He's a skilled gunman and also a fighter, and they could not keep up. Soon, Steven realizes the fugitive is wearing their suit and informs the captain about it, while Long Wei hears their conversation in the walkie-talkie but does not alert them to his presence. Later on, we come across Steven and his men in the corridors, and a fight ensues between them, and he kills the two men successfully, leaving Steven to further brutal fight. Long Wei fights back as much as he could and finally forces Steven to the elevator, which gives him apprehension of the enemy's weak side. Steven is also using a knife in the fight, but his opponent was too smart to know how to defend himself. However, Long Wei doesn't kill Steven in the end, and we see him leaving him unconscious on purpose as he gets out of the elevator. Elsewhere, Amy has copied the source code of power into a hard disk and given it to the captain, but he declares that he was lying when he took the deal and takes the hard disk away, ready to kill all of the witnesses. He orders one of the men to take Amy, and in the meantime, Long Wei alerts the captain of his presence and gives him another deal, an exchange of a hostage for a hostage, and the captain is now not smiling as he was before when he hears Steven's voice on the other end. He invites Long Wei to come up front and exchange hostages, and Long Wei accepts, but before he goes, he puts a bomb in his jacket and covers Steven's mouth with plaster. He shortly arrives and makes his entrance to the control room, but to Wei's surprise, the captain shoots Steven himself. It turns out that he was just using him, and an open fire ensued in the room between Captain and Long Wei. And thanks to his past skills, Long Wei manages to take the captain in his arms and point the gun at him. This results in the rest of the men standing down, and Long Wei tells Amy to take the hostages with her, and she quickly asks them and they depart. And meanwhile, the captain manages to escape Long Wei's pointed gun and starts to defend himself. His men immediately start to shoot at long range, but he manages to kill all of them, and afterwards he tries to hide using a dead body as a shield, and there he finally activates the bomb in his jacket, and the place explodes. In the aftermath, the place looks dusty and destroyed, but Wei has survived miraculously, which will be revealed in the future. He stands up and follows the blood dripped by the hostages, and he follows their routes only to find himself in a dark tunnel chamber. When he jumps, he accidentally drops his medicine, which he doesn't notice, and after a brief walk, he encounters the captain with a scared face pointing a gun at Amy. He stands down as he realizes he has no choice, and soon the captain smiles and shoots and throws Amy. When Wei tries to approach, he shoots him too and walks toward him to finish it off. And meanwhile, Amy grabs and begs the terrorists not to kill Long Wei, but he brutally and repeatedly hits her and murders her right there. At this point, we remember his wife's words and the bracelet that she gave him for their family's course, and this gives him the strength to overpower the terrorists who is determined to murder him. They have a brutal fight, and after some back and forth of punches, Long Wei soon gets upon the captain and activates another bomb, resulting in a final explosion, which finally leaves Long Wei victorious. However, to our surprise, the movie doesn't conclude there. Long Wei soon appears to be surrounded by a bunch of doctors, including Amy at the Black Rock Labs, and it turns out that all of this was part of the VR test. Amy welcomes him into the company, and Long Wei hugs her for being alive. The movie comes to a close as we see Long Wei visiting his daughter at the hospital, and she finally embraces him and forgives him for what happened.